If you want to learn to play the piano by ear, but you're not exactly sure what that really means or where to get started, you're in the right place. Before we start this video though, I want you to pause it if you're not already sitting beside a piano. And then once you're beside a piano that's tuned to A440, then we'll get started because I want all of my audio examples to match with what's going on for you at home. So here's today's schedule. First, I'm going to help you to determine what your present ear playing level is, and you might actually surprise yourself with what you're able to do already with the activities that we jump into. And yeah, I've actually had some previous students that have worked with me that said, man, I didn't even know I could do this already, just because we tapped into ability that they had already. The next thing that we're going to do is I'll just share a few more tips and tricks for helping you level up. If you're level 1 and you want to get to level 2, I'll show you how to get there and the strategies that I've used and pick up along the way when I've been in bands and university classes. After that, I'll show you some of my favorite free or inexpensive tools you can find on the internet to help you with learning your intervals better, playing by ear, that type of thing. There are a few resources online that are really good to help you with some drilling and practicing, especially with learning your chords. An app I'm going to be using in the demonstrations today called Chordie is really helpful, and it's not just for teachers, it can actually be for people like you who are just getting started. But there you go, that's the schedule for today. In the description below this video, I'll put timestamps so that if you want to skip certain parts, if you think you know something already and you want to go to the next part, that's fine. You can just scrub ahead and go to the part that actually applies to you. So feel free to do that. The first thing we're going to look at today is a lead sheet. If you can play from a lead sheet, you're a level 1 ear player. The example we're looking at today is just the verse for Hey Jude. And you'll notice at the very beginning, right above the word hey, where the singer comes in, there's not a chord written yet. The F chord that's written above the word Jude doesn't happen until the downbeat of that first full measure. And that's important. I think they wrote this way on purpose because they wanted the person playing it to realize that, hey, some of the versions of this song, the singer starts all by themselves and the rest of the players didn't jump in until that F chord started. And then you just follow the song along. You'll notice there's only one staff in a lead sheet. They don't provide the bass notes or any other harmony notes. It just shows you where the melody goes. So that's all there is. That's what's written on the page. So that's all that's written in the actual staff, but filling in the rest of the harmonies, that's what happens with the chord symbols that are written above. So we start with an F, and then halfway across the page we get to a C7, and then we play a little bit longer, and then it goes back to an F, and then we go to a B flat, then an F, and then a C7, and then we finish on an F. Hope you're able to follow that because I don't have a way of pointing on this screen. On the next screen, actually, let's just do that right now. All right, now we can see everything. Hopefully you can still see it at home. So you're also going to notice that I'm able to play and show you the notes that I'm playing on the piano. And now I can also move my mouse. You can kind of see where I'm pointing at stuff. So, okay, there we go. So the F right here is an F chord. And if you're not familiar with what the notes to F chord is, we got F, A, and C. And then our left hand somewhere we'll play an F as well. Okay, so there's your first chord, the F. Hey Jude, don't make it bad. And you'll notice that's a C7. Now, to my ear, the way I've heard it, they actually, I thought they only went to a C chord there. And then they went to a C7 on the word sad. Take a sad song. I think that's where it actually changes. So that I'm doing this on purpose to prove a point. Sometimes you find arrangements or something simplified on the internet and they write the chords out for you and you realize that there's little differences in what's on the page than what you heard in the recording. And so trust your ear. Sometimes it'll be that way and you'll have to actually correct your lead sheet. Now, I'm going to have to go back and listen. Maybe they actually did go to C7 first. And if I did, okay, fine, shoot me. But maybe it's just the way I've played it with some of my groups that we just went to a C. Anyway, after we get to the sad song, it back get better, we go back to an F. And on Remember, to let her into your heart, then you can start to make it better. Now, those of you who know a little bit about music theory already are probably going, well, how do I know which inversion to play when I'm playing these chords? And my boot camp students, I give them all the details about that. I don't, this video you're watching right now is only an hour. I don't have time to explain all of the ins and outs of this. I'm just going to play it in whatever inversion I feel like, and just show you how that works. But there are some tips and tricks that will help you to know which inversion to play, because that's an F, that's an F, and that's an F chord. And there's all sorts of variations that you could do that are all an F chord. So it's important, if you're trying to mimic the style of the original artist really well, it takes some time to do the listening so that you know which inversion they played, and that you know that the version of the lead sheet you've got is actually written correctly as well. You might find little discrepancies. Sometimes the people that write those, they deliberately simplify it a little bit because they want to appeal to an audience that can kind of get started and just, you know, learn these songs quickly. But the more advanced ones, they will write it completely accurate, knowing that well-trained people are reading those lead sheets and they want it exact. So the source that you buy your lead sheets from, choose that very, very carefully, depending on what your goals are and what your experience level is. Let's do a little bit more on this before we put it away. I get questioned all the time by new students is, okay, fine, we've got that treble clef sitting up here, but there's no help down here. What am I supposed to do with my bass hand? Like there's no clues. Well, let me just show you one more little thing. Now, this is not an exhaustive list, but a lot of bass lines will follow at least one of these, and this is just meant for rhythmic purposes mostly. But sometimes the bass line is just quarter notes. Sometimes it's faster and it'll be eighth notes. You've got to listen to the original artist and just see what was the bass line actually doing. Another common one for bass lines is the dotted quarter and eighth. And that's what the bass line did. Sometimes the bass line is syncopated and it sounds like this. No, that's not what this song actually did, but I'm just giving you these as examples, just so you know what else to do with your bass hand. The next example on this page is fifths, and I deliberately did D and A, because we're going to use that in a country song we're going to play a little bit later. Country does use a lot of fifths, or the bass line just goes from fifths. You're probably wondering, well, where does that, why do they call it a fifth? Well, because if we start on D, and we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the A up there is the fifth step of the scale. So we're just saying we're going in fifths because we just played 5 notes higher and back. Then the last one on this page is a walking bass, and sometimes it'll be that's too high. Let's go down here. Now we can play it with a swing beat. Gives it a totally different feel. Okay, so this little diversion was just to show you that there are other things that you can do with your bass hand. Listen to the song that you're working on and just figure out, where did the bass go? And this list is not an exhaustive list. This is just a few examples of some of the more common bass lines that I've heard to this point. But there's a ton of other ones, and some of the bass lines are actually a lot more melodic. So don't be surprised when that happens. Anyway, if you are able to play along with a lead sheet like this, and you can figure out the bass after a few times listening to it, and you figure out which chords belong, then we'll say that you are a level 1 ear player, and maybe you were able to play some of this at home. Okay, so what I want you to do is I'm going to play through the song. I'll be the singer, but I just want you to play through it once. Just try to do an F chord, like, let's see. Play the F chord here. When you get to a C7, let's play it like this. When you get to the F, we'll go back to like this. Let's play B flat like this. This is just the easy way. Back to F, and then a C7 to make it better. Whoops, just like that. Okay, so you play along at home. Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better. Remember to let her into your heart, and then we can start to make it better. Okay, now this time I'm going to jazz it up. I'm going to do a little rhythmic figure in my right hand, which I think is closer to the way that the Beatles did this one. So just look how that goes. Try to add this and have A be the top note instead, just for fun. Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better. Remember to let her into your heart, and then you can start to make it better. Okay? If you're able to play along, you're a level 1, and we can find some songs that are probably more advanced where the chords change more frequently. This one was pretty easy because the chords lasted at least a measure, sometimes longer. Yeah, other songs will be a little more tricky because sometimes you can have like 4 chord changes per measure, and you just have to know all your chords and be able to change it as they go. I also played this time with the C7 exactly as written because I didn't take the time to go in and change that one, so I thought I'd play it as written just not to throw you off. But anyway, if you're able to follow along with that, if you want to back this video up and do that again, that's fine. Do it a couple of times. See if you can follow where my hands went. If you need to take notes and write things down, that's fine. At some point, I will probably create a worksheet that goes with this video, so just look below this video. If there's a link to a worksheet, you could take that, go print it, and then you could actually take notes along the way, and this would make even more sense to you. But one more concept before I go to the next part. You'll notice that there are different kinds of chord symbol that are above some lead sheets. Now, the one we just finished playing, there wasn't any slash chords. It was only regular chords. Let me just describe what these mean. If you have just a regular chord, it will start with a uppercase regular letter, and then if there needs to be a minor triad, there will be a lowercase m, and then if there's numbers that kind of help you fill in other harmonies, that will show you a number there. Now, I'm not going to get into the numbers today because that would take too long to explain, and I save a lot of that for my boot camp students. Anyway, the C minor 7 sounds like this, and the members of a C minor 7 are C, then we got an E flat, G, and then a B flat. That's a C minor 7. That's what I would call a regular chord. And I'm saying that because it's different than a slash chord. A slash chord would actually have the harmony before the slash, and then the bass note is represented by the letter after the slash. So I'm going to change screens here. Let's go with, there we go, change the key to G. All right, so if we're in the key of G, but I played it like this, that's got kind of a neat sound. And if you notice the chord name view, which is right here, let me just wiggle my mouse. Every time I play a chord, it's going to show you what that is. So it interprets it 2 ways. It's saying A9 suspended 4th, but I prefer to just call it a slash chord. I know it's written smaller, but the G/A, that's what we got instead. Now, those slash chords, all it means is the chord before the slash is what you play in the right hand. Notice there's lots of different ways I can play G. And then the one after the slash that's the bass note. Okay, so that's all we're talking about when it comes to these slash chords being different than regular chords. And so you'll see that in a lot of music where we've done that. We're ready to move on to level 2 now. So this one is a chord sheet for Mercury Blues, which is a awesome little country song that I learned. You'll notice that there's no help anymore with the staff. It doesn't give you the melody line, but don't freak out because you know what? It's probably fine to not have it, because if you're playing in a band and you're the keyboard player, somebody else is probably doing the job of singing. And a lot of times as a pianist, you're not required to play the melody. If you're a solo pianist and that's all there is, well, then you should learn how to play all of the melody as well as the chords, and that's fine. It's going to be more work, but it's doable. And if you stick with me and you put in your time, you'll be able to do that after some work. But I do want you to think outside the box a little bit. If you came here expecting to play by ear, it can work for you to be an accompanist as well. So be open-minded to other things that you could do with your piano playing. So here's our example again. Mercury Blues is, again, I didn't give you a really hard song to start with. There's not a lot of chord changes in here. and it's in the key of D. And then you'll notice that there's a long intro on this song. And if I remember right, I just wrote this sheet myself, actually. If I remember right, I think they just stayed in D, and the instrumentalist just kind of noodled around, did some soloing before the singer actually started. And so the whole thing started in D, so I don't have to write the D one time, and then the chord just keeps going for quite a while. Then the singer starts, if I had money, and we... Okay, let's change our screens. Okay, so now you can see what I'm doing. Here's my chord sheet, and you can see where my hands are actually playing. So now the way I heard it like this. I heard it with the F sharp, and now that's probably maybe going by kind of fast for some of you. You'll notice I'm playing a D and an A. To go down a fourth is the same as going up a fifth. And so I hear that song this way. When I've listened a ton to that, I interpreted it that way. That's how the intro goes. And if you want to listen to that a few times and watch where my hands went, that's fine to figure that out. But I'm not going to play it again because you can just rewind if you want. So I heard it with the F sharp up top, and then it just kind of repeated. When we get to crazy, the word crazy, let's move my mouse over here. You can see where I am. So when we get to crazy, now I'm going to switch to a G chord. And for convenience, I'm going to use this inversion of the G chord, because before I was playing the D, so my top note was an F sharp. It's really slick to just go from here to here. None of my fingers had to move very far to get there. That's why we want to learn inversions. We don't want to just play everything in root position where the bottom note of the chord is the same as the bass. We want to learn inversions because it makes changing quicker. So here we go. If I had money, tell you what I'd do. Go downtown and buy a Mercury or two. Crazy about a Mercury. Lord, I'm crazy about a Mercury. Now we come to a B minor. So B minor is spelled this way. B. And again, the F sharp I'm going to use that as a top note because it's really convenient. It was really close to the last chord I played. So we just do that a couple of times. And then we switch to an A chord above the word cruise. It's just an A chord. So A is A. And we got a C sharp and an E. That's what we're going to play, and then we'll end on the D again when we get to the word road. Gonna find me a Mercury and cruise it up and down the road. Okay? So if I had money, tell you what I'd do, going down to Mercury 2. Crazy about a Mercury. Lord, I'm crazy about a Mercury. Gonna find me a Mercury and cruise it up and down the road. Now that's just walking through without any rhythm. So if you're still late getting to the party, just try it one more time. If I had money, tell you what I'm gonna do. Go downtown and buy a Mercury or two. Crazy about a Mercury. Lord, I'm crazy about a Mercury. I'm gonna find me a Mercury and cruise it up and down the road. Okay? So hopefully you played along with it that time. Now we'll just do it in real time. Try to match yours with mine. Just do your best. If you don't get it the first time, just rewind, try it again. If I had money, tell you what I'd do. Go downtown and buy a Mercury or two. Crazy about a Mercury. Lord, I'm crazy about a Mercury. I'm gonna find me a Mercury and cruise it up and down the road. Okay? If you're able to do that, you are a level 2 ear player. And you're starting to figure out where your bass hands go. You didn't need anyone to actually show you the melody line because we were thinking of being accompanists this time. We weren't thinking of playing it like the other way. Now, of course, I could play the melody if I wanted to, if I was by myself. Now that was just by ear. I've played that one as a singer or just a keyboard player before. I've never actually played that song with the melody before, but because I've heard it enough, I was able to do it. Now, did I do it perfect? No, I didn't do it perfect. I was close, but you knew what song it was by what I just did. So, okay, if you're able to do that, you are a level 2. Now, I should say something right here before we move to the next level. You'll notice that I keep talking about the original recording, and I'm going to harp on that a lot because that's kind of what we're using as our bass line. Well, that's a bit of a pun. Sorry. That's kind of like that's the version that we're trying to mimic. And sometimes you want to do your own thing and be completely different and do a reinvention. That's fine too. But if your purpose is to play as close to the original artist as possible, so that people can recognize it, then it's worth it to listen a lot to the original recording, so you can hear where the voicings were, hear what the bass line was doing, just so that you can represent the style and feel of the song as accurately as possible, because your listeners, they're used to hearing it a certain way, and you're either going to try to match that so that they're happy and content, or you're going to totally reinvent it and put it on its ear and do something way different to get them to go, oh wow, I didn't know this song could go that way. Whatever you want to do, that's fine. Playing by ear, it really requires listening, because at least you want to get the harmony as close to the original as possible, because if the harmonies are way different, you probably lose your audience. You're like, what song was that? If you don't do the harmonies the same way. So you'll notice I do spend a lot of time on harmony with my teaching. Another thing that you should do is when you're trying to play along with a song, I always do this when it's a brand new song. I play along no matter whether I've got a sheet in front of me or I'm trying to do it just from by ear. I play along with the original a few times to really get the feel, and then turn the recording off, and then it's just me and the piano. I just go for it. And the reason I do that, there's 2 reasons I think students should do it as well, is it does help you to get the feel of it. But the other thing is, most of the time you're going to be listening to a high quality recording with professional musicians that made that, and they're going to be keeping steady time. And knowing how to play with steady time is important. If your goal is to be able to play the piano with other musicians and you want to collaborate, you've got to be able to match time and stick with other people so that you're not the one that's slowing them down or pushing them too fast or whatever. And playing along with recordings really helps you to get that. I know that was a weakness that I had as a musician early on, is I didn't have a really good sense of time. And so by playing with recordings and playing with other musicians, I had to adjust and figure out how to do that so I didn't make people mad at me by not being able to keep time. So good skill to have. And that's another reason why listening is such a big deal with this. If you would like to get you'll notice that I have this Chordie app, which shows you the notes that I'm playing. I think this is not just for teachers. This is for you too. If you're looking for a great resource, I'll put a link somewhere where you can get this app. But I've got this app running on my computer, and then my keyboard is plugged into my computer, and so that's why you're able to see what notes I'm playing. And it's so helpful to be able to play some chords and see that and go, oh, that's what that's called. Okay, obviously that's a D. That's not hard, but something like this. I want to be able to see, what is that called when somebody else writes that down? Yeah, or when I want to write this down and have somebody else play it later too, if I'm thinking of being a composer, I need to know, what is that chord called? And how are those notes spelled? And so this Chordie app is really good for that. And it gives you a few different versions as well. You notice with this one, that's kind of it seems like a bit of a mess, and then it gives you a different description of it. Like there's the main big one, which is B flat 13 with a flat 9, but then it gives you some other options to how you might notate that and write that down for other people to play. In this instant, I'm happier with the B flat 13 flat 9 because that makes sense to me, and I just feel like that's what that chord sounded like. Anyway, I'm not trying to scare you, but this is a really neat app for identifying your chords. And if you play along and you find and it sounds right, but you don't know how to represent it, you just do it like that. It shows you what it is. You write it down on your own chord sheet, and then you can have it for later. Remember what that was and how to spell it. So it takes me to the next example. This one is The Way You Look Tonight. And I've done the Michael Bublé version is the one that I've learned. Now, you'll look at that and you go, okay, you just got the word intro, and then you have some words that the singer's supposed to do. What's going on here? Well, this is level 3. And level 3 is when you take just a lyric sheet, and you'll notice that the way I've written this one down is I've left spaces between the lyric lines, because that's where I'm going to write the chord changes in myself when I listen through it and hear it. And again, like sometimes you go to these you can get chord charts from other places as well, all over the web, but you can't guarantee that they're all accurate. So I usually don't even bother with those. I start from scratch, like what you're seeing on the screen, and I'll just figure out what they are. And so I'll go through it and I'll figure out what they are, and then I'll just write them down in pen, and boom, there we go. The chord changes need to be written in rhythm as well as possible, so that you know rhythmically where the changes occur. So that's why there's these gaps. There's these gaps between the blue writing, because you held that chord for a bit before you had to switch to the next one. And sometimes the chord description was so long, it just took up so much space that the next one had to be kind of run in beside it really close. So for this example, I'm just going to play through these chords, but I'm going to change my screen now so you can see what I'm actually doing with my hands. So the intro starts with an E flat major 9. Teaching moment right here. This is a small M. This is a big M, and they do matter. If it's a big M, we're talking about a major, and a small M, we're talking about a minor. I think I talked about it before, but just review helps. So an E flat major 9 chord is spelled like this. Oh, you know what? That's going to notate it funny in the manuscript view. Let's just change that. Everything's happier now. Okay, doesn't have to write any accidentals in. So that's an E flat major 9. And then this cool little thing that happens right after that. And then back to the E major 9. Doesn't that sound just delicious? Oh, I love those chords. And you thought you were never going to see that chord again. There it is. So there's the intro to this song. So we got the... I'm not playing the rhythmic stuff yet. I'm just mapping out the chords so that you know where you are. So now let's look at the individual chords, and I'm going to go slowly because this is probably new for a lot of you. If you're here learning by ear for the first time, this is going to be like really overwhelming if I go too fast. So above the word someday, there's the chord already that you've already played once. And then the next one's a C minor 7, and that looks like this. Now again, if you've got a chart that you can write these down with your pen, go ahead and do that. If you downloaded the PDF and printed it, you can do that. So here's what the C minor 7 looks like. And then the F minor 7. I should do it this way. Yeah, that looks better. Sounds better. When I'm awfully low. Okay, so now those are the notes for the B flat 7. And then the next one is a G diminished 7. And this is a time where I'm going to disagree with the way that Chordie's writing this. It says G minor 7 with a flat 5. That is correct. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I want to call this a diminished. And here, quick teaching moment. So here's G. That's a G diminished chord because it's not minor. It's diminished because we flattened the 5, which Chordie is picking up, and then we add the 7 on top. I call that a G diminished 7, but Chordie's calling it a G minor 7 with a flat 5. They're both correct. They both identify that chord. I just prefer to call it diminished, but whatever. Chordie wants to call it a minor 7 with a flat 5. Okay, so then above the word cold, then we're going to have a C7 with a flat 9. That looks like this. So write those in. If you need to pause this video at any point, feel free to do that. Pausing the video is fine because I want you to make sure you can write these in. And then we go to another F minor 7. We've been there before. And then the next one is a slash chord, which I taught you before. So the slash chord above the word aglow is like that. So we got the A flat chord happening there, but then we add the B flat in the bass. And it resolves to a B flat 7 before we go anywhere else. So there's the B flat 7 after. The singer isn't doing anything new. And then Just Thinking of You goes to this. Now in this case, you'll notice that the second description of the chord that Chordie has identified was the D flat / E flat. So that means I have a D flat chord here. I just happen to have F on top and A flat on the bottom. And then an E flat is in the bass. Okay, and the way we switch to the A flat major 7. A flat major 7. And again, I'm going slowly because I want you to write these down. If you're gangster quick and you can write and then play them, go ahead and do that. Figure out where you want your fingers to be. And the way you look. Okay, I went too fast. G minor 7. Let's give that one its moment. You look. And then the F minor 7, which you've already played. You've probably written it down. 2. There's that B flat 13 flat 9. You've already written it before. Tonight. And we ended on the E flat major 9. Beautiful. Okay, so now I'm gonna, instead of going that slow, I'm gonna play the chords closer to in rhythm, but I'm not gonna add any rhythmic stuff yet. I'm just gonna sing and block the chords out. Someday, when I'm awfully low, when the world is gold, I will feel a glow just thinking of you and the way you look tonight. And I missed the 13 chord. And the way you look tonight. Back to the intro. Do it again with someday when I'm awfully low and the world is gold, I will feel a glow just thinking of you and the way you look tonight. I need to do that again. So let's just do it again in rhythm with a little bit more fun added. And if you want to watch where my bass line goes, that's fine. I'm probably going to do this rhythm, the dotted quarter and eighth. It's probably the rhythm I'm going to use for the bass line. Someday, when I'm awfully low and the world is gold, I will feel a glow just thinking of you and the way you look tonight. Do it again. Someday, I'm awfully low and the world is gold, I will feel a glow just thinking of you and the way you look tonight. Now, if this is leaving you behind, don't feel bad, okay? I got some coaching to give you later in this video that'll help you feel like this is fine, but this is where you're heading eventually, is being able to identify the chords, figure out where the bass line went, what's the overall feel, what rhythm should I be playing these right-handed chords in as well. I tried to imitate the style of the Michael Bublé version of this song, and I think we got pretty close, and I try to sing like him too. Anyway, if you were able to stumble through that, without too much trouble, or maybe give it another few minutes, you'd be able to do that much, then we could safely say that you are a level 3 ear player, and you might be ready for looking at what level 4 is. So let's talk about level 4 next. Level 4 is when you start with this. There's nothing. And you're like, you hear the song, you figure out what key it's in, and if you have to do a Google search to find it, that's fine. There's no shame in that. But you figure out what key the song is in, and then you just figure out what chord did they start on, and then away you go. So here's one that I learned by ear. This is from the 80s. Okay, that's as much as I'm going to give you because that's a long song. Okay, so this is Come Sail Away. Now, it's probably mudding it up for you a little bit because I'm using sustain pedal, and when I press the sustain pedal, it's holding the notes for you, even though I'm moving my hands to somewhere else. But I learned it just from hearing it. Okay, I knew it was in the key of C. I heard the intervals on that little. And you're probably going, how do you hear intervals? How do you hear that melody line so accurately? And if you're not able to hear intervals, I have a great resource that'll help you with that. There's a website, and I'll put this so don't worry about writing this down. This will be below in the description of this video. It's called tonesavvy.com. And there are so many great ways that you can drill and practice your ability to hear intervals, chords, broken chords, block chords, and then you just hear it, and then you just test yourself and see how well you're doing, and just go for as few errors as possible. And I don't have time to describe more of it right now because this video would be way too long. I will create another video that describes how to use Tone Savvy so that you can get the best results from it. And that again, that's free of charge for me. If you want to get a membership at Tone Savvy, they have nothing to do with me. But I just go in there once in a while. I don't even have an account. I just drill and practice and just write down, how many errors did I get? And you can do that without an account if you want. But if you want to actually have an account that tracks your progress, then feel free, go ahead and do that. But I just go in there and I just drill and practice every once in a while and just say, hey, could I do this particular drill with 0 errors and feel good about myself? When you know your intervals, when you know your chords, that's how you build songs from scratch, just from hearing them. And when you think about it, there's a lot of music that you and I take for granted that just would not exist if somebody wasn't able to hear it in their head, play it, and then they went back and wrote it down for everybody else to play. Not every song that you've heard started on a piece of paper. Okay, a lot of it did, but not everything did. Some of it started in someone's mind. I mean, I've even written some myself that started out as a melody line that was in my head, and then I had to figure out, how do I do it here? If you're able to hear something and then just play it, it's safe to say that you're a level 4. Now, the weird part about that is, though, did you know there's people that can play at level 4, but they really struggle to collaborate with other musicians because even though they can feel it, they can hear it, they can do it, they don't know their note names. They don't know the chords and the harmonies that they're playing because nobody was able to teach them in a way that reached them. And so people that can play by ear exclusively can feel really lost in the world that everybody else lives in, where there's structure and everything's written down. And the good news, if you're watching this and you're one of those people that you played by ear and is like, well, maybe this guy has something that can help me, I want you to know that there is help. And I do offer a class exclusively just for people at level 4 who want to actually work the other direction. Figure out, how can I know my chord names so that when I'm playing, I know how to tell other people how to join me. And if you can play by ear, but you just can't hop in and play with a band because you don't know how to read the stuff that they're doing. Because seriously, if you try to hop on stage with a band and they've got a lyric sheet in front of them, like the one you're seeing here, if you don't know what all those symbols mean, then you're going to be very lost. Even though you can play that song, after hearing it a bunch, you wouldn't know how to fit in and play it with a band. It especially would get complicated if that band learned that song and then a singer came along and says, "Oh, you know what? That's too high. I need you guys to learn it in a different key." Again, you'd be really lost. Like, "Oh no, I only know it in E flat." If you know your chords really well and the things that I teach you in the boot camps, not only will you be able to interpret that stuff, but you'll understand how those chords fit and function within the key that they're in, so that if you need to uproot and switch to a new key, it's not a big deal. It's not so scary. It's like, "Oh yeah, okay." That's a whole other lesson, which I won't get into, but I promise that's part of what I deliver to my boot camp students is let's have a really good structure of the chords, but let's also know where these chords fit within the key that we're in, so that if we switch to another key, it's not a really hard job to transpose and go somewhere else. And that's another thing that being an ear player, you're able to do. People that play exclusively by sight, they would have to get a totally new piece of paper in front of them. And there's no shame in that. If you came here and this is the kind of music that you play, that is awesome. And I'm not going to try to tell you that you should try to replace classical and Baroque music in the ear playing world. I just feel like that music either needs to be memorized or you need to have your sheet in front of you, because people that listen to classical and Baroque music, they expect certain things. They expect those notes to be there. They don't want an approximation. But if you play rock, pop, and country music, there's a lot more leeway. People are a lot more forgiving, and as long as you got the harmonies right and the melodies is pretty close, they'll be with you. They'll just be happy with your performance. In the classical world and the world of reading by sheets, you really should pay attention to the notes and either memorize all those notes or have the sheet in front of you. But that might beg the question, if you're thinking, well, I want to take lessons from Cam because I want to be a keyboardist in a band. How do people memorize this stuff and be able to play? Because if you notice a lot of bands that are on stage, they're not going to have music stands in front of them. Everybody has memorized their part. So that's the next topic I wanted to discuss. What do you think is going to be easier to memorize? What you see on the screen here or what you see on the screen here? All they have to memorize is what's in blue, and there's a lot of repeated things. And if you've got this sequence once, the second stanza of this song for the next part of the verse is exactly the same progression. So once you have it played it once, you've got it again. And the same will hold true with the chorus of this song. You learn the chorus of this song, well, the chorus usually happens 2 or 3 times. So once you've got the chorus mastered, then you just play it again. It's just pattern recognition. And that again, it leads me to when you're learning how to play music by ear, it's important to look for patterns that repeat over and over again, because once you find patterns, then things start to become even predictable. It's funny. You're going to think I'm lying, but I hear new music come out sometimes and I can almost predict where it's going to go because of the chords that they chose and the where the inversions were of the chords they were playing. And I could just kind of feel it. Oh yeah, they're probably going to go to this chord next. And they do 90% of the time for me, because I've been doing this stuff for so long, it almost becomes predictable. When you're trying to play something totally by ear, no sheet in front of you, never heard the song before in your life, it's fun. And as you're looking at all the things I've thrown at you today, I know that there's going to be some of you watching, you're thinking, man, this is just too overwhelming. I don't think I could do this. Well, let me remind you of one thing that many of you have probably done. You probably did this at some time in your life. And maybe you didn't have like an official teacher with that little sign on the car, but somebody was sitting beside you. Somebody had the guts to sit beside you and say, okay, you take the wheel. Let's give this a try. And you had so many things coming at you. And the first few times you did, it just felt like, oh man, this is just so overwhelming. I gotta know where, how to control the steering wheel. I got these signal lights. I got these pedals on the floor. And it was just so much. But you did it over and over again, most of you anyway, until you're able to successfully drive a car. You just did it. And now when you do it, it's like, no big deal. It's like, okay, I get it. I know what I need to pay attention to. And certain things are predictable. They're routine. They happen the same every time. And to be a safe driver, there's certain steps you should always take, of course. But music can be the same thing. If you do some of these activities that I'm going to help you with in the boot camp, assuming you join in, you're going to start to recognize patterns and certain things that I teach you are transferable to other areas of your playing. And using memory to play by ear, it's a big part of it. I'm not going to lie, but when you know what to look for, you know what to recognize, and you know how to chunk and get data, in bite-sized pieces stuck in your brain like it should be, it's not as big of a deal as you might think to be able to play, a few songs with a band. You're the keyboardist, and you have not a piece of music in front of you, no lead sheets, no chord sheets, and definitely no manuscript sheets in front of you. And you just play because you feel it, you hear it, you know it. Muscle memory eventually kicks in as well. You do a song enough time, muscle memory, like your hands, they kind of know where to go after a while. I hope that you've had some real value with this instruction. I have so much more I want to teach you about chords, how to identify them, and get the most out of the tools and the things that I shared with you today that are either low cost or free. If any of this has interested you and you're thinking, I think I need more of this, I want to be able to do this. Well, you've got two choices right now. You could just use the lone wolf approach with some of the terminology I've shared with you. You could go and find a bunch of YouTube clips that kind of talk about some of that stuff and maybe piece together a program that would kind of help you to play by ear and help. If you're level 1, it'll maybe be able to help you to get to level 2. And if you're level 2 and so on up to 4. But if you're enjoying what you're hearing today and you like my style and you like that I'm excited about showing different genres and that you get to pick what songs you do, then you might want to consider my high quality coaching. Again, you've got some choices when you get there too. If you're happy with being in a group and you want a discounted price, I never let groups get bigger than 5. And we would have sessions with 5 students at a time. You would learn something from what I teach your fellow students, and they would learn something from what I teach you. But if you're like, I really want to go in a big way, I want one-on-one coaching because I think this guy understands me, he understands this process really well, then we can talk about paying my regular rates for one-on-one coaching. And again, it happens on Zoom, and it's all convenient with your schedule. There's your 2 options there with coaching. Now, how does this work in terms of the 4-week program? I believe in doing this really intensely for 4 weeks. And we do 2 sessions per week. And the reason I do that is because I want to have momentum. If you have me once a week, chances are you might not start practicing until the night before to try to get ready for the next lesson. I don't want that to happen. So when I have 2 lessons per week, then you really need to push and you need to work every day to be prepared for the next one, because it's either 2 days later or 5 days later till the next lesson, and you want to be prepared to fly. The other reason I want to do it is because I want the program to be a shorter time commitment overall. If we do this over 6 or 12 weeks, it's just such a long time that a lot of people struggle to commit to doing something for that long of a time. And so that's the other reason I want to do a 4-week program. If you're liking what you're doing and you get from one level to the next, you want to pay again and do 4 weeks to get to the next one, that's cool. I'm good with that if it works with your schedule. But I do want to keep it to 4 weeks at a time. And again, you choose the genres or the songs that you're going to be working on. I may recommend one for you that I think would be good to help kind of balance you out. If you're like only doing one artist of songs all the time, I'll try to get you to think outside the box and do other things, because I do believe in trying to help you to have a wide range of genres that you can do, because it's just healthy, and it is more likely to keep you engaged and want to keep learning and keep going if you're doing other genres. Because then you don't feel like you're stuck in a rut. Everything starts to sound the same if you only do one genre. And again, the lessons are all held by a Zoom meeting. The question that you might have by now is, how do you register for this stuff? Well, go to students.earplayer.me. There is a brief little survey to fill in, just so I know who you are. And if you've watched this video, then you'll be able to answer those questions about your current status and what level you're on. Helps me to kind of figure out what group to put you in. And then we'll talk for 15 minutes once you've filled in that survey. Once we've talked to each other, we'll decide what times of the week work for you. And my appointment will be automatically booked on my calendar and on yours, just so that we know when our 15-minute consult's going to happen. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you're not able to commit to lessons right now, I got good news for you. I want to just keep giving and adding value to this channel. And so I will continue to add videos to this channel to help you with different things. So if you subscribe to this channel, you'll get a little ding and email will come to you and say, hey, Cameron just posted a video about how to modulate from one key to the next. Whatever it is you want to learn, I'll post little videos here and there. But I do recommend the coaching, because if you want to take this seriously and just really get in and have me available to answer questions. I mean, I don't know if you noticed that, but part of what happens here is you do get 2 texts per week, and just say, hey, you know, I'm struggling with this part. Can you help me? And it's not part of your regular lesson schedule. Then you can text me, and I can give you some support and help you keep going, so that the rest of that week didn't feel like a loss because like, oh, I forgot what he said about this part. No, I want to answer your question right away and help you get back on track so that you're ready for the next lesson and keep you moving forward. Again, momentum is so important. That's why two times a week I think is better than just one. If you want to register for the course, there's how to do it. And I'll see you in the 15-minute session, and we'll figure out what time slot works the best for your by ear lessons, whether it's a group or one-on-one. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope to see you in one of those 15-minute consult sessions right away.